Commissioner,
Kelly's on. I don't see Art or Lisa.
Commissioner Cubitt is in her office. Right.
Is she
All right,
on?
Let me take the meeting here, all right?
Conference
All
room.
right, I want
Commissioner Cubitt and Commissioner Gamble are in the conference room on the 5th floor. She's on her way up to the conference room where Commissioner Gamble is.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Sir?
Can you hear me, Jackie?
Yes, sir.
Everybody to go mute.
Everybody, the chairman's asking you to go mute. Commissioner Cubitt, can you hear us? All the commissioners are thank you. Commissioner Ott, are you on the line? I think Kim said he's having technical difficulties, Chairman.
I couldn't open the
And I
window.
know Commissioner Burrow can hear me. She's good.
Well, it's even on my phone.
Huh? Okay, so well, I can hear Commissioner Q, but it's Ott, Commissioner Ott, that we can't get sound on.
Can you see me or just hear me? Not right now. We can't see you. We're just gonna go. We're gonna just go with this. Okay.
Yeah, we're up.
Okay, we are live and we are streaming on TV 23, Chairman.
All right. So, Commissioner Ott, are you?
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Ott is not on.
Let me call him to the
Chairman, I can go ahead and call him if you would like to go ahead and proceed if you'd like.
we're not going anywhere without Commissioner Ott.
Why did he stop?
For those of you who are at home, give us just a few minutes. We will start the meeting in just a few minutes. We're trying to work out a few technical difficulties, so hang tight.
Yeah.
All right, Commissioner Ott just texted me. He's going to call me back here in a second.
Keeping his tanks now.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Yeah, that was driving me crazy. Be late, just not that one.
Okay, I don't know what's going on, but we got to get this meeting started here. I've asked him to call me otherwise, so maybe he'll connect to us that way. Let's get started here. Start with the consent agenda. So I'll start with you, Commissioner Burrow. Do you have any comments on the water system request and consent? Items 1 through whatever, 1 through 8.
No, sir. 1 through 8.
Commissioner Cupid?
No questions.
Commissioner Gambrell?
No questions.
Okay. I'll stay with you, Commissioner Gamble, for DOT questions 9 to 11.
On number 11, I know the board has received many emails from constituents asking us to support this with the addition of 2 other roads, that being Pindo's Pass and Pindo's Way. I have communicated with Nick Daw and also Erica Parrish. I would like to add Pindo's Pass onto here as well for consideration.
Can you hear the challenge?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I got Commissioner Rod on the line here, and he said he has no questions until we get down to the MOUs, so he's good for the first agenda items. Commissioner Cupid, 11, any questions?
I don't have any concerns. Certainly the correspondence that the community has provided has shown me that there are a number of challenges. I would like to hear from DOT if they were okay with that request. I don't know what the vetting process is for applying those zones, if it's DOT or Fowler that's responsible, just to get some feedback. But if there are no procedural concerns, I certainly don't have an issue supporting this.
Okay. And Erica, if you would get with the Commissioner Cupid to answer any question you might have, I'd appreciate that, okay?
Yes, I'm just asking now, are there any outstanding issues with respect to that, Erica?
Traditionally, when we, am I echoing? When we have requests for no parking zones, there's two different routes. There's a policy where we can provide a petition process to citizens, and anyone that is impacted on that roadway, they would go out and request a citizen to sign the petition. And it actually has to be anyone that owns a lot along that roadway. So there's that way that we can review the process for a no parking zone, and then also the fire marshal has went out there and deemed that it is unsafe for emergency vehicles with the way that the parking is.
Okay.
So once a parking zone has been established, that's the only thing it is established, and you really can't take it away.
Right.
Especially if the fire marshal's office has established that parking zone. And then that either way, once you establish that no parking zone, no family members or anyone is allowed to park on the street.
Right. And so for this Pindos Trail, what was the process for determining on-street parking? I see here, the fire marshal's office determined that it should be restricted.
They did. So they had reached out, and we, through in our office, and Commissioner Gambriel and I believe Nick with the fire marshal's office actually reviewed information that they provided, and then they also had a virtual in-person meeting to meet with the property owners to discuss the trail. The original process that DOT had determined was to take it as a phased approach and look at Pindos Trail and establish the no parking zone along Pindos Trail and see if that alleviates the parking concerns out there. If not, then phase 2 would be to look at restricting Pindos Pass.
Oh, okay. Yeah, clearly there's an issue, and I can understand the process for that took place for Pindos Trail. Because these no parking zones are so highly restrictive, I just have a little bit of discomfort about applying it without going through any additional procedure because of the significant impact it will have. And I know Commissioner Gambrell's being responsive to constituents. Commissioner Gambrell, do you have correspondence from all of the residents that are on the street that you're looking to add?
Commissioner Cupid, yes. Actually, they had submitted a petition to have Pindos Trail, Pindos Pass, and Pindos Way all dedicated as no parking. So they wanted it done throughout their whole subdivision. With their petition, they submitted pictures of the parking that was happening on Pindos Trail and Pindos Way. Upon seeing those pictures is when our fire marshal determined, okay, this is a public health issue, and they didn't have to continue through the no parking sign petition, which is the one method that Erica mentioned. While the homeowners are very glad that Pindos Trail has been, essentially going to be getting the no parking, actually they want no parking, no standing, no stopping. Mm-hmm. The concern is they're just going to push it down to the hill, and the people that are coming to observe the views are then going to park on Pindos Pass, which they are currently doing now, which was supported by pictures, again, that the homeowners sent previously, and then they also sent me another round on Friday, which I then shared with the fire marshal. That's why they want Pindos Pass included as well. Is so that, again, we don't have the access block for the homeowners, and then also prevent potential access for our public safety personnel if they would come to get to the Pindos Trail, because there's 2 access points. If our public safety doesn't know there's folks parked on Pindos Pass, they're going to have the same trouble getting through as if they were on Pindos Trail. That's why we wanted to do that. Also, if you carefully look at the subdivision, the only places where the homes have developed pretty much are on Pindos Trail in Pindos Pass. There's a couple homes that are on Pindos Way, So kind of the feeling is okay, if folks park there, it's not going to be a detriment to the homeowners because they'll still be able to access it. But it'll also give the homeowners the opportunity. They're exploring gates to make it a private community, which would take care of the parking issue in general. But we need to get the issue addressed quickly because it is becoming such a popular place for people to visit.
Okay, and that, yeah, certainly was made evident in the videos and pictures that were provided. And again, I know your desire to protect, the safety and welfare of the residents out there. And this agenda will be tomorrow. I don't know if there's some feedback mechanism, if there is a homeowner that does have a complaint about it being installed. You can wait. There's certainly, it's going to be a time to fabricate signs. I don't even know if there's a 5-day, 10-day window to hear back from someone, just to know if there's any concern. That's my gut feel, again, because of the highly restricted nature of this. But again, Commissioner Gamble, this is your area. You're being responsive to your constituents. I'm supportive of you in that effort. And just hope that all the residents are on notice that this could be moving forward, that they're on notice of how restrictive this is, and that they do know that there's a feedback mechanism to be able to have their concerns elevated if they weren't in support.
And Commissioner Cooper, this is where I go back to the petition that the homeowners originally submitted.
Okay.
And they pretty much had 100% signature participation to have all 3 roads. So that's where I'm confident in going and adding Pindos Pass it this way, along with Pindos Trail. Myself, Major Ellis, Captain Michael, we went and met with some of the homeowners in person. The rest of the homeowners joined in the meeting via Zoom, along with Drew Wrestler, and we had very frank discussions on how this no parking, stopping, standing applies to everyone, and essentially even the homeowners could be ticketed or fined if they park there. And for right now, they are willing to do this until they take the steps to look at the private gates, etc.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I appreciate you bringing up the petition again, which would presume that all of the residents were contacted. So I'm willing to support you with this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Burrow, you have any questions on that one, on that 9 to 11?
Unmute your phone.
No, sir. I concur with Kelly.
Okay, then I'll stay with you for public services 12 and 13. You have any questions there?
I'm sorry, what numbers? I can't hear you.
12 and 13.
No, I don't have anything through 13.
Okay, Commissioner Cupid?
No questions, but just some appreciation for item number 13 to know that the ARC is awarding additional money for our Meals on Wheels program.
Okay, Commissioner Gamble?
Just for the board's knowledge, and I was texting with Jimmy, and Jimmy, you can back this up. There was an addition error on this agenda item, and it ends up that they forgot to add fencing, but the agenda item will be updated and made correct so that the expended amount equals what has been detailed out.
This is item
Okay,
12. Item number 12, Helen?
Yes, item number 12. If you added up the projects, it only 659,000, and they were requesting 670,000.
Okay.
So when I got with Michael, he had left out $10,755 that was for fencing. replacement at East Cobb. So the Parks Department was going to update this agenda item, and like I said, I was texting with Jimmy. Jimmy, you can concur here, but they have updated the agenda item to make sure that all items purchased were included.
Okay, thank you.
That's correct, Commissioner. Pam has it now, and she'll be handing out a copy.
Okay, Commissioner Gamble, I'll stay with you on 14.
Well, actually, I had one more question for number 13 that wasn't answered over the weekend. With this additional funding from ARC, how many more seniors are we looking to serve?
Commissioner Gambrell, I'm sorry, I just sent the email to you, but we're looking at approximately 800 seniors because we use a unit cost of around roughly about $5.30 per. So we're approximately 800.
So that's 800 new seniors that we're feeding?
No, it'll be 800 meals. What we're looking at is the seniors will roughly be around 50 to 100 because we had a wait list, and so we were using that money to go specifically toward those seniors.
So how many seniors do we have on our waiting list, just out of curiosity?
When we initially started this, we had, so they were in two tiers. One tier had roughly about 80 and the other had 75. We moved down now to just a total of 84 on the wait list since this has all started.
And so the 50 to 100 that this grant is going to feed, is that going to feed the 84 that are on the wait list, or is it still...
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So is that going to feed the 84 that are on the wait list, or still the 80 and 75 that are on the two tiers?
No, so the two tiers now, we have a total of 84. We will use this funding to definitely include the 84 in the meal count.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Commissioner Gamble, 14 and 15.
For 14, I know Bill has been emailing me back with some of the answers here. On this Fund 380, I would like to know, what amount we have available and what we have spent year to date. Because it seems like we're moving a lot of money in and out of this capital projects fund. And in the CAFR, I found where we had exceeded our revenue by $9 million last year. So my concern is that we just aren't overspending through this accounts. So Bill, can we get this a little bit more detailed as far as what's available and what is spent or encumbered?
Which number are you referring to?
14.
14, okay.
Yes, Commissioner, I sent you an email today giving you the breakout, and it's not uncommon to have big swings in this fund each year as we basically pre-fund projects. So for example, things like PC replacement, we fund every year, and then every so many years we have a big spend out. Or like the Unified Court Case Management System, we fund that over a 3 to 4 year period, and then we'll have a big spend out. So the email I sent you today shows we have $13 million all restricted and committed for specific projects in this fund at the end of 2019. And then so we do have big swings in this, but it's just timing of which these big projects are pre-funded versus completed through construction. But yeah, we can get together on that and walk through that. There are literally, up to 50 projects going at any one time in this one fund itself. But you may have several years of pre-funding before you spend anything. So that's kind of how these are set up. But yeah, we're happy to get together with you and provide you any information you need.
Okay, I was just, again, going back and reading, I know we had to transfer 17.7 million in. That's why I wanted to make sure that we weren't, overspending funds that we didn't necessarily have right now.
No, ma'am. And again,
As you know, Commissioner, hey, Bill, hold on a second here. Commissioner Gamble, you know darn well and good that this county cannot spend for something we don't have money for. So we got to be very, very careful with these comments that this county is outspending its revenue stream.
And
Mr. Chair, you just said that we spent $9 million more than we had revenue for. That's what you just said.
And Mr. Chairman, that is in our CAFR report that was printed on for the year ending September 30th, 2019. So I'm taking language right out of our CAFR report.
All I'm saying is the headline's going to read, county is outspending its revenue stream, when in fact, that's just not true. So,
Page 13 of the CAFR report, Mr. Chairman.
I'm not going to get into the details here. We have a balanced budget, Commissioner Gamble. This county can never possibly outspend the revenue that it has. Now, what we may have programmed for doesn't necessarily mean that we've appropriated it for. But we have not outspent our revenue stream. We have an aspirational, and then we have a reality. The reality is we have a balanced budget and we don't spend money that we don't have. So you have any more questions on 14 and 15, Commissioner Gamble?
No additional questions.
All right. I've lost track here. Commissioner Cupid and Commissioner Burrow, you commented on 14 and 15 already or not?
I'm good.
Just a point.
Okay, Commissioner Cupid?
Yes, just a point of clarification for item number 15. Are these for replacement computers, or are we buying additional as well?
These are for replacement. If you remember, about 4 years ago, we had the big contract that lasted 4 years.
Yes.
Now, over the 4 years, it's time to renew that, basically.
Okay, thank you, Sharon.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Commissioner Burrow, I'll go with you on 15 through 21, or 16 through 21.
I don't have anything. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Cupid?
No questions.
Okay, Commissioner Gamble?
No questions.
Okay, I'll stay with you on 22 and 23, Commissioner Gamble.
Jessica Gwynn has already answered my question to make sure that the correct annexation letters were included for our vote tomorrow.
Okay. Commissioner Cupid?
Just a point of observation for the first annexation item. It's the one that is near Baker and White Oak Road. That's a tricky one that I think could lead to some confusion amongst residents, because it creates a very large peninsula of property that's going to be surrounded by unincorporated Cobb. And this is a continual observation I make with some of these annexations, understanding our limitations by the 489 agreement to be able to oppose it. But I do want to recognize that annexing shape like that into such a large part of the unincorporated area where most of this annexation will be surrounded by it will likely create some confusion among residents about their service delivery provider.
And Commissioner Cupid, we addressed that in our letter of non-objection. Some of these points that you have brought up, and so that was so noted.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're on the 24 to Commissioner Gamble, 24 to 27.
I have no questions, 24 to 27.
Okay, Commissioner Cupid?
No questions.
Commissioner Burrow?
Yes, number 24. Page 89. Why, we have, police training instructor struck through. I'm asking Tony why that was removed, why that's being removed.
They no longer have a need for that specialty pay, so this item is to add back any that they new ones that they needed and take away the old ones they're no longer using.
So there's not that position anymore?
Well, there's not that assignment anymore. They
Okay.
retitled it to a different assignment, but it's not that assignment with that title.
Okay. Alrighty. And the same with the safety village?
Correct.
Okay. That's all I had on 24. Do you want to stay with me for 26? Or are you?
Yeah, let's jump right in. Well, you have everything from 24 to 27.
Okay, I have a question on 26.
Okay.
Since this is CARES Act money that's already deposited, I understand why we didn't have the agenda item to accept it or approve it. And it, I guess, went into contingency or reserves, but I feel that it needs to be a totally separate, account, only for disbursements for COVID-19 through the CARES Act.
And Commissioner, it is. So what we did, we took in the money into our general account, and then what we moved it to is the Georgia Fund 1 secondary pool. So it's in an account all by itself. So whenever we expense money, it will be, because we're setting up this new fund, once we have this fund set up, things can be directly charged to this for that are qualified and eligible for CARES only. So this is absolutely segregated, and it is not commingled with any money. And once we have this agenda item established, it will be tracked in its own fund, actually making finance life a lot easier, because right now the expenditures are hitting individual departments, and we're going to have to move those that are eligible into this fund. But once this agenda item is approved, anything COVID related will be charged directly to this fund, and it will be 100% segregated. We have not used a dollar of the 132 yet because we don't have authorization from the board to do so. This agenda item is going to give us authorization to do that. And then we're putting it in contingency until the board determines what that allocation is going to be in the future.
Okay, what is the name of the Georgia fund you were referring to?
It's with the Treasury Department and the state. So it's called the Georgia Fund 1 secondary pool is the account that we're depositing this in. And it gives us access within 24 hours to draw funds down from this account. And it's segregated by itself. So we do this for a variety of different cases, but we are able to set up unique accounts for specialized money that has to be segregated, such as this. And that's where we park it. Because what we cannot do, or what we should not do, is keep it in our regular bank account, because that creates issues for us as well as the bank. It basically allows it to sit there and not be used.
Right.
Okay.
That's the point. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, did you have any questions on 27, Commissioner Gamble, Commissioner Burrow?
No, sir. That was all.
Okay, so we had an add-on, non-consent, number 51. Everybody get the green sheet for that? From 911. Okay, hearing nothing, I'm assuming you did. So Commissioner Burrow, do you have any questions about agenda item number 51?
No.
Okay, Commissioner Cupid?
No questions.
Okay, Commissioner Gamble?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'll just stay with you, Commissioner Gamble, for, I guess nobody has a problem also with number 28 to approve the minutes. Just to make sure that, I think that's pretty reasonable, everybody understands what that's about. But Commissioner Gamble, I'll stay with you for regular, starting on regular, with item number 39.
Congratulations, Director Kreider.
Okay. Commissioner Cupid?
Yes, likewise. Congrats, Randy.
Okay. Commissioner Burrow?
Congrats, on board.
Okay. Sounds great. All right, Commissioner Burrow, I'll stand with you for number 30.
Is he asking me?
Yes, Commissioner Burrow. I'm staying with you for item number 30.
Yeah, number 30, this is addressing just the food, no transportation or anything else. Correct?
Correct. Well, the item, are you asking if the item
Food
includes?
related. Yeah, it doesn't include any transportation of transporting the food, just the purchasing the food and the distribution. And CDBG or Frank Newton will be coordinating all that with receipts and eligibility and applications and so forth.
The item, Chairman, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I think the only thing, there is some provisions for storage in there. Sometimes you have to buy the food and freeze it until you distribute it on the day that you're going to be doing it. So there is a provision within the language here for storage. But I believe over the weekend, the county attorney's office added a provision inside the MOU that none of these funds will be used to purchase vehicles, lease vehicles, or conveyances of such nature.
Right, it says food procurement, storage, and distribution. I'm good. Okay, I get it.
Okay. Commissioner Ott, go ahead.
Yeah. I don't remember seeing that in the MOU yesterday.
Okay. Deborah, if you'd send the latest MOU to Commissioner Ott, I'd appreciate it, or Mr. Rowling.
Okay. Sure.
Yes, and want to thank you, Chairman, and all of the board members for being receptive to the feedback from different organizations and putting forward this process. I reached out to Kimberly Roberts to see if we've covered all of our bases, and there are a few outstanding things that we may need to address. It may be from a procedural perspective outside of the MOU, or maybe something that we consider incorporating. And I'm just going to read through these, Kimberly, if you don't mind. If you need to write in the detail, please feel free to jump in here. I'm just reading from the correspondence that I received from you. The first question is if we have an idea of how long the recipient would have to spend the money. It was initially thought to be about 3 months to spend the allocation if the county has to expend all the treasury funds by December 31st, 2020. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on time period that we're looking to spend that down.
The, currently, the way we have set it up, not been used, then they would be reallocated.
Okay.
We can have it done.
Great. Yep. And that's, and that covers another matter if we look to reallocating it. And then I think by the 31st. There's another question about whether or not the board is comfortable with reimbursing organizations for expenditures prior to this money being distributed, or if we're looking just to cover expenses from when this is put in place. Are there any thoughts towards that?
Mr. Cupid, I haven't heard any support from the board for retroactively reimbursing any any of the programs. This is for money going forward.
Okay. Does anybody else want to jump in?
I will. It was my understanding that with the application that they will be, the nonprofits will be giving, WFN, that they will have to get reimbursed for their receipts.
Yes.
So I'm not, they've already purchased the food to get, they've got a receipt, so I don't see how it's gonna be dispersed, money, allocated for future.
I'm sorry, there's some feedback. I didn't hear the last part.
Understanding that they're gonna be submitting an application with receipts to be reimbursed for the purchase of the food that they're distributing. How would they get money or disbursements for if they don't have already got receipts?
Yes, I'm sorry. I think I hear you that they should be getting reimbursed based on receipts, and that is correct. That this money would be paying them for money that they have already spent and that they can show proof of already expending.
Right.
Yes. So because organizations have been involved in food distribution since the epidemic, and specifically when shelter in place was put in, there was a question of whether or not we could be retroactive to March 13th in reimbursing expenditures that the organizations have made then, or if we should look from this point forward in making any distributions to organizations.
Commissioner, the current MOU is back to April 1.
Yeah.
And of course, we can revise that if we need to.
Okay, so then this would be going back to April 1.
Right.
However the board would like to see that done, yes. We can pick a date, or it can be no reimbursement. But the idea is to reimburse what they've spent so far for the virus, and then give them some money to spend going forward.
Okay, and I'm seeing some nods here. So this is already going back 2 weeks, and it's April 1st is reflected in the document. Was there any interest in going back to the 13th from when shelter in place was put in, or just to April 1st? And I'm sorry, I can't see everyone on my screen, and I believe that's you speaking, Debbie.
Yes, that's me speaking. But of course, that's a decision of the board.
Okay, yes, which is why I'm asking. Is the board comfortable with just doing April 1st, or is anyone amenable to going back to when shelter in place was put in on the 13th?
Where did the April 1st date originate from? Why did we pick that date? Just curious. I mean, is that because of processing everything for Kimberly to do?
No, the original, the April 1st date was in some documentation, an email that I received from, I think it was some notes that Commissioner Cupid had at one point in time. But again, it was just a date that was used.
Yeah, so in the feedback that Sherry Martin helped to put together a document identifying a process that was reviewed by different organizations. And that was the date that was put in the document, perhaps recognizing the expenditure that organizations have already made. My communication with Kimberly, she had asked whether or not we wanted to use April 1st or if we even wanted to go back to the 13th. So that's all that I'm trying to address with my question.
Do we have any idea what amount that would be? I mean, will they still be covered moving forward if we go back to the March 13th date, will they be covered with the $1 million?
That's a good question.
Until we see applications, we're not going to know what that number is.
So, and it does say up to $1 million, so, I mean, we can go back to that date, but moving forward, if we get to the $1 million and we're still, you know, a month out, they have to come back and we'd have to, you know, consider additional funds. So, I don't know.
I hear you.
We need some other feedback, Lisa, to see if you've got 3 votes to do that.
Well, I'm asking now, I don't have a preference, right? I'm just asking the question because the question was asked of me. You know, the whole goal here is to support the organizations in their distribution.
Right.
The question has just been posed, and so I'm posing it to you. It's not for me to garner, it's just for me to try to get a sense of where the board is on this matter. My presumption is that there may be some nonprofit organizations that may be listening to this. And so what I would see, because I sent them a copy of the resolution or the MOU, excuse me, I will see if they have any additional feedback regarding that date. And can provide some additional information tomorrow if there's no additional feedback on that. There is one last matter with respect to just procedure. And again, I don't think it's something that necessarily needs to be in the MOU, but could help provide some direction. But if the board is comfortable with a 5-day application period to begin on Wednesday, May 13th.
Commissioner Cupid, I'm talking with Commissioner out here on the phone. He has some concerns about going too far back because, you know, people would have to break out their statements to reflect only food to meet our MOU. He said he's going to leave on April 1st. Doesn't have to go too much farther back than April 1st, all right?
Thank you, Commissioner Ott. I appreciate that feedback.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I can't hear Commissioner Ott at all.
No, he can't because he's on the phone with me, Commissioner Burrow. He's not on the web. He's not on the web screen here.
Okay, so repeat your April 1st.
He said he can live with April 1st. He still has some concerns about providing statements that only reflect the guidelines in the MOU. In other words, they'd have to alter some of their statements to get credit for that money. And that leads a whole different, into another rabbit hole. But, you know, it is back.
Okay, I agree.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Gambrill.
Yes, Chairman. I still have concerns with this. You know, we keep reading in the MDJ and hearing on the news how all these organizations are giving specifically to these nonprofits for covering meals and food. Yet, Cobb Community Foundation has not expended all of the funds that they have received specifically for the COVID-19 fundraising efforts that they've done. So again, while we're going to be reimbursing them for previous expenses, this is essentially going to give them money to spend however they want. And I think this is where the constituents are getting concerned about, is because while they can submit food receipts, they're going to get the money back, and then we have no control over where that goes. And until they spend off the money that they've already collected for COVID-19 related expenses, I don't think the county should be reimbursing or providing additional funding until they show that they've already spent the money that the community has given them. In addition, the agenda was changed to undesignated contingency. While in the budget we have undesignated contingency, Bill Volkman also gave us a list that showed where that $83 million of undesignated contingency was being allocated to. So which bucket are we pulling from? For example, some of the undesignated contingencies that he had dollar amounts tied to were the BOC, the county manager, the stadium fund, just to name a few. So to say this is being pulled from undesignated contingency, from which bucket are we really pulling it from within that undesignated contingency that we outlined?
Commissioner, and we have a revised agenda item after speaking to the board, because remember, initially this was going to be funded through the agenda item, which is how the agenda was initially written. There is a revised agenda item with this that is going to be funded through the CARES Act. So we're pulling it from the contingency in the CARES Act right now. So, but it's coming out of the 132 million, and that's where this is being paid from. But initially, when this was being proposed, we didn't know about the 132 million, and the direction from the board was to provide a funding solution without the CARES Act grant. So that's why the initial one was coming from general fund contingency account. But that has been changed, and I want to make sure you have a copy of that, where it's going to be funded out of the new CARES Act grant fund. So no general fund dollars will be involved in this whatsoever.
It's the same as some of the departments, Commissioner.
Here it is right here.
Yes.
Right. It's some of the departments like public services or whatever have been expending funds out of their own budgets, and Bill was talking about moving it to that fund. But until this is approved, it's showing up in funds that, you know, the county had already set up, but it will be moved and reconciled to the CARES Act fund.
And the finance agenda item only puts the CARES Act in a contingency account for now until the board allocates out their priorities. So that's where, again, the contingency is going to come into play, but it is the $132 million is all sitting in the contingency account for CARES until we receive a further allocation from the board. But this $1 million, as well as the administration fee, will come from the $132 million of the CARES Act.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. And then also, I think we also need to remember that on Friday, there was the announcement from the federal government that they're doing the Farmers to Families Food Box Program. That is going to be $3 billion. And that is going to go to any 501c3 or government entity. So again, until these other funds are expended, I'm still having a hard time putting a part of this money towards that when there's so many other resources already out there.
I think the chairman's mic is muted, so he's speaking, but we're not hearing him.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Cupid. Any other comments about this agenda item? All right, hearing none, let's go on to the next one, Commissioner Gamble. I'll stay with you on the one about the hazard pay.
Okay.
31.
So my first question is why is the board being asked to approve an agenda item that does not have an anticipated expenditure attached? There's no detail as to the expenditure that's going to be anticipated here.
So the way this one is written, we were trying to make sure that we allowed some flexibility for the department head and the elected officials, Commissioner, to go back and look at those employees that they deem to be essential and coming in and perhaps being put in a situation where they may have been in a situation where they were in the presence of folk who were presenting or who could not otherwise meet the. So originally, when it was drafted at the last, I'm not sure if it was the last meeting or not, but we had been working on it for public safety employees that were deemed critical. And then we were asked to look back at many other employees who were coming in, physically coming into a location. And so we had not received all of the information back from some of the elected officials with regard to those employees that they deemed essential and were coming in. So the agenda item is written in such a way that it would allow for the department heads and elected officials to get those numbers together. And they would then deem, since not everybody that clocked in came in, it would allow those department heads to go back and scrub their lists to ensure that it would be, the funding would be for those folk who they deemed essential, came into work, and who potentially could have been in a situation where they could not social distance or could have been in a situation that was deemed hazardous.
Okay, but I guess I still, until we see this list and we see this dollar amount, I would suggest that we pull this agenda item. Because everybody, you know, that I know we've come in, that I've seen, has been in their office, which provides the 6 foot distancing. But I also have a problem with the county doing a resolution based on elevated risk and stress levels. Just because June 13th comes does not mean COVID goes away. COVID is not going to go away. It's always going to be out there. So to do a resolution based on elevated risk and stress levels is not good policy practice for the government to begin. Also, within the guidelines that you sent us for the expenditures, it was very clear that it was for public health emergency. And it was also dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 emergency. So why we're sitting here and considering other potential positions that were not clearly defined in the federal guidelines, I'm not sure why we're doing that.
What federal guidelines are you talking about, Commissioner Gamble?
In the email that was from Jackie McMorris on May 5th, 2020 at 7:39 p.m., it says, and I just took this out, it's may presume that payroll costs for public health and public safety employees are payments for services substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 public health emergency.
Okay, so you have guidelines.
That's very clear. So why we are leaving it up to individual department heads or elected officials to determine based on who clocked in, who is going to get this $500 a month, benefit, I think is wrong. So if somebody clocked in once a week and then worked from home, they're still going to get that benefit. To me, this is abusing taxpayer dollars.
No, they would have to be directed by their director to come to work. Secondly, their support personnel that are behind public health and public safety people that have to come to work in order for these two functions to do their job. And the moment that you leave your house, you're exposing yourself to the virus. So you make a good point. So why not just have hazard pay until we have some guidance in the federal government that the virus danger is past, and we continue to pay this hazard pay until that happens?
But this virus is not going away. I mean, people are going to have to learn how to live within the virus. Just because June 13th comes and the governor, unless he removes it sooner, removes the state of emergency, COVID-19 is still going to be here. So again, I think the purpose and intent that the federal government put out was for our public safety employees, our firemen, our police, even DOT in some respects, parks. But you figure parks' responsibility, they were shutting down the parks. They've already gotten their compensation back from that when we compensated through the other policy that ended on April 4th. So again, not to say they're not going to be at an exposed risk when we start to reopen the parks, but again, we need to remember that the government is not responsible for keeping people healthy. The government is responsible for governing. So to sit here and give people a benefit, they have an exposed risk if they go to the grocery store. there's no way you can prove that they picked up this virus coming into the office or if they picked it up somewhere else. So again, to sit here and open this up to allow all employees to be compensated just because they came in and clocked in, I don't support. Hence, that is why I asked for a detailed list of the departments and the employees that were being considered to have this $500 compensation. And, you responded, you pretty much didn't send me the list, and that would be a topic of discussion. So again, if we can't see this list and we don't know exactly who's being compensated, I say we pull the agenda item until we get this together.
Okay, the purpose of the board here is to set policy. And apparently, one of the parameters you use for setting policy is you have to know who's going to get the money. The number one priority of government is not to govern, it's to protect the people. And anytime we send people outside their home to go to work here, because the virus is going to be, as you very well say, we're exposing them to a risk. Even the parks people, when they go in there to clean the bathrooms, we're mitigating the risk by cleaning those bathrooms, and we're exposing our employees to that. So there is a number of ways here that this virus is endangering our people, and yet they're out there doing their job and they're exposed to this virus by the very nature of their position. This agenda item recognizes the commitment and sacrifice they're making by coming out and doing their job. And I think it's been very difficult here to decide who gets what based on their job. In fact, what is the preeminent danger? The preeminent danger is the virus. And if we mandate to come to work, all right, then we're exposing them to that virus, which is a hazard, and which hence the hazard pay.
But again, this virus is going to be here on June 13th as soon as the declaration of emergency ends, and essentially this $500 benefit would go away. So again, you are now setting policy going forward that, okay, instead of funding it out of the CARES Act, we're going to have to fund it out of our own general fund to pay employees based on potential hazard risk or stress levels or associated burdens that they find in their workplace. This is going to be here. We need to realize that. And we also have to remember the whole reason that we went to the shelter in place was to allow the healthcare workers to try to get ahead of this, because they knew they were having a hard time getting the PPE. They knew they were having a hard time of getting the supplies that they might need because of what was happening in other countries. Hence, we still, we're still looking for masks, and the $25,000 or 25,000 masks that the county has ordered, we still haven't received. It's because that is not there. That was the whole reason for the shutdown and shelter in place. It wasn't to prevent everybody from getting the disease. Well, it was, because if we all stayed in place, then we wouldn't still have the spread. But the bottom line is COVID-19 is here. The shelter in place is going to end. COVID's going to be here, and people are going to be expected to come back to work.
Mr. Chairman, I have some comments.
Yeah, I'll have some other commissioners jump in here. Commissioner Burrow, you have some comments?
Yes. I thought that we had a list of departments that were deemed essential at one time, in addition to or other than public safety. Have I seen such a list, or am I?
So, Commissioner Burrow, there were several departments that we deemed essential. IS, for example, there's no way we could be doing this call without IS. They have been in your offices. They have been cleaning your offices. They have been cleaning the police cars. Property have been going into different places. We've had employees exposed, some test positive. We have electeds who have continued to do their jobs, like tax commissioner's office. The court system haven't shut down. So yes, when we looked at this, we said we wanted to allow those department heads to look at their roster and determine those employees who were coming in to a work site that they potentially could have been exposed to. That's what this includes. So what I was
Right.
saying earlier is that not everybody who clocked in is eligible for this pay. It would be those department heads scrubbing their list, looking at those who actually came into the office or a job site, and some of those folk who are in the courts who have continued to do their job forward facing prior to us being able to put up the glass shields. So
Right.
with that, I'll stop. So yes, there are departments and or individuals who have been coming in and
And
redeemed
I
essential.
understand that. It's not gonna be someone who came in one day, like our assistants, came in one day to clean out their office or for a meeting or whatever. And then the June 12th date, my understanding is, I mean, this is for the, limited operations services that we're under now. When we go back to work, full staff, this won't be in place or shouldn't be in place, correct? Is that why we're doing it through June 12th or the shelter in place too order?
So we're doing it through June 12th, or as the agenda says, or as deemed appropriate by this board after hearing the governor may or may not say for his public shelter, his public declaration. But we won't come back to full operations, understand this, until we do have the proper PPE for all of our employees. So we have drafted a return to work protocol, which is phased in based on us being able to accommodate the safety measures that we need to put in place.
So this is following the executive order of June 12th, not our expiration of our limited operation.
Exactly.
Okay. And then, so far, this is all coming out of the CARES Act money, not our budget.
Correct.
Okay. Did we have any idea with the courts and the other elected officials, constitutional officers, their departments, and our essential employees, do we have any idea of what that would be so far?
3,100 approximately.
How many employees?
3,100 employees approximately, yes, ma'am. But what we wanted to do with this agenda is to allow again the elected and those department heads, that's an approximate number, to go back through that list and scrub it. That's a not to exceed.
Okay. And then will it come back to us again when they have a final list?
If that is your pleasure, it can. But what we were asking this board is to approve this agenda item with the understanding that the elected officials who submit their list and the department heads who would submit their list, that would be what the CARES Act would cover. The idea wasn't to continue to bring it back.
I would support we
Provide
pull
you that
this.
information, but the intent wasn't to continue to bring this item back. If we continue to do that, June 30 would have come and gone.
Well, I support the agenda item,
Lowercase?
but I would like to see a list when it's all said and done, but we will know.
Thank you.
And we can get you that information in terms of if you want to know the departments and what they have submitted, we can share that. I'm still, like I said, I'm still waiting on some because they're going through it.
Okay.
And we're happy to share that. What we're asking, though, is for those department heads to share through their agency directors and the elected officials to have the trust of this board and the autonomy to go through there and make sure that they have identified those employees to be considered. And so that's what we're really asking. We're not asking to have a blank check. That is not what this agenda allows for. It allows for those department heads to say, yes, this employee deserves it, and this one doesn't, because, like you said, they may have only come into the office for 15 minutes or to do something, minor, and they wouldn't be considered. That's why we're asking that the department heads have some say-so over this, so they could determine that. And I've heard from some of the elected officials in the course, they would like that opportunity to go through their list of people, because not everybody who clocked in came in.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
You're welcome.
Another question is,
Mr. Cupid, you have, Mr. Cupid?
Yes, Chairman. Yes.
I'd like your thoughts, please.
Okay. I do believe that there is a basis for having some type of hazard pay for our employees. But I agree with Commissioner Gambrill that this may not be ready for prime time with this agenda item. The whole concept of hazard pay for employees has ebbed and flowed since we've been here with employees receiving some benefit with respect to additional hazard, then that benefit being pulled back, and now this being moved forward. And I had reached out to the county manager to find out how we got to this iteration. And this is a significant policy moving forward that I think could be fleshed out and be made a little bit more ready for our consumption with additional discussion, and also with the pieces that Commissioner Gambrill has requested, which I don't think it's unreasonable to know which positions will be impacted. I think the department heads should have the ability to be able to review their materials to ascertain that, but I think that should be done prior to our vote. I think that some of the concerns that are being shared about exposure, I don't think those are unreasonable, and I don't mind elected officials and department heads having the ability to, again, determine who should be considered as essential. But to have this move forward and say we have essential workers without any further description of who those employees are, I think puts us in a position where we're making a significant financial expenditure without having supporting backup data for it. I also have concern without knowing who those positions are, not knowing what that financial impact will be. And I do agree that the virus may be with us for some time, and there may be some flexibility to extend this beyond the June 13th date, but I think that we should at least know what this financial impact would be up to that date, because then that gives us the ability to project further out what the impact will be. $132 million is a lot of money, but there also is a lot of need and impact that the county is experiencing with respect to the coronavirus. In our call with Holland and Knight, and in our last work session, there was discussion about supporting small business with expenditures. There was support for PPE purchases. There was discussion with respect to helping more with food distribution or helping with housing stability. There were just so many unknowns that could be big impacts to that dollar amount. This could also be an impact to that dollar amount. And I think, you know, having some figures on what we're going to spend and what will be spent in each of those would be helpful so that we have a path forward in that 132 million. So I would be asking for the same thing that Commissioner Gabriel asked for before I can support this. I would be asking for some list of the positions and the anticipated financial impact of this for each of those positions so that we can make a better, we can be better informed about how that entire bucket is going to be spent down in light of all the other pressing needs that could be addressed with that.
Okay. Commissioner Cupid?
Yes.
The amount is
Jackie,
4.6. Yes, sir?
Jackie?
Yes, sir?
All right, Commissioner Ott also has similar concerns. So we're gonna go ahead and pull 31 and bring it back at a later date, all right? So once the commissioners engage Jackie on what their concerns are, we'll reshape this and bring it back to further discussion at a later date, okay? All right.
Okay.
Commissioner Burrow, I'm gonna stay with you for transportation, 32 through 44.
Sorry, I was muted. I don't have anything with transportation.
Okay, Commissioner Cupid.
Yes, come back to me, Chairman. I am looking for a possible question I have.
Okay, Commissioner Gamble.
Erica, I know we had quite a long conversation before this meeting started. Number 40. It's the engineering for the light at Mars Hill and Ford Road. Because I know this was on the list as a discretionary project for the 2022 project, for the 2022 SPLOST list. So is it really viable to do an engineering study right now, knowing that this might not be constructed for another 10 or so years?
So the locations that have been identified actually warrant signals today. Our hope would be to go ahead and design these, and if funding is available, try and cobble those dollars together. If the board would allow us to move those funds into the signal category and bid it out of general fund, typically. But when we sold the property, or the property was sold last year, they were able to put some of those dollars into locations that had been identified and warranted the traffic signals. So that would be our hope, would be to go ahead and design it and see what the overall cost is going to be. And if we don't have the funds for the signal and any minor road work that would be required today, like for an interim project, for additional funding later, as budget requests come forward.
Okay, because I know the other concern with this project and that location is the proximity to Hadaway. Or am I looking at this wrong? And will it cause traffic to get blocked up? Because this is kind of in between where Hadaway is and then Burnt Hickory. So when they sit here and consider putting the signal at this intersection, are they also going to look at how it's going to impact traffic flow through those other two intersections?
Yes, ma'am. We'll look at that also.
Do you have any questions, Commissioner Gamble, on DOT?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Erica.
Chairman, I don't have any questions for additional transportation.
Okay, Commissioner Cupid. Thank you. Commissioner Cupid, you have the floor.
Yes, no additional questions, Chairman.
Okay, then I'll stay with you for parks.
Yes.
45 and 46.
Yes, 45 has been a long time coming, and I just appreciate various commissioners being willing to speak to members of the community with respect to item number 45. I do not have any additional questions for item number 46.
Okay,
I just have one question on 45.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wonder, like we haven't had in the past, or is it pretty much anything?
Okay. Commissioner Cupid? Commissioner Rod has a question, and this also for I guess, Bill Rolling. Is this, this name for the park, pretty much in community agreement, or do you expect anybody to show up in opposition tomorrow at public comment?
This has had many different iterations as well. I don't know. I do know there seemed to be a broad consensus for this because the location Discovery Park is included, but also the reference to the river line is included. And there have been extensive discussions for us to arrive to this point. I cannot guarantee that there would be no one in opposition, but I could tell you I've received no correspondence with anyone in opposition since this agenda book has been published.
Okay, thank you. Did you get that, Commissioner Rod?
I did.
Okay, he heard you, Commissioner Cupid. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Gabriel, 45 and 46.
No questions.
Okay, I'll stay with you for 47, 48, and 49.
I have no questions for the remainder of the agenda.
Okay, Commissioner Cupid,
No additional questions.
Commissioner Burrow?
Roll is.
Yes, no, do we know the have we had people fill out the form to speak for public comment? I know we have 5 o'clock today, but do we have?
10 or 12.
Yes, ma'am. Ross says we have between 10 and 12 who've already signed up.
Okay, are any of them related to the park?
There may be one or two, they weren't specific.
Did you hear that? He said there may be 1 or 2, but they weren't specific.
Okay. Thank you. I'm glad to see this finally coming back to Commissioner Cupid. And then for 40, do you want me to stay with 47?
Yeah, we have 47, 48, 49. Mm-hmm.
Okay, 47. We're just extending the lease for 1 month from October.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so they're still paying on a monthly basis? So
Yes, ma'am, they are. Same rate.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Chairman.
Commissioner Rod, you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay, with that, I think that takes care of all the agenda items. So now I make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any nays? Okay, thank you all very much. We'll go to our other link site now and go to executive session. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Can we have 5 minutes? Can we have a 5-minute break, Chairman?
You got to get off to call into the other web, ma'am.
He's saying yes.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. We're going to take 5. IS, can you end all calls, please?